Welcome everyone to our final lecture in the series Sacred Trees. This is the live oak and other indigenous trees of California presented by Julia Louise Bogany. This program is hosted by Bridge Projects. We are a contemporary gallery located physically in Hollywood, California, and conceptually located at the cross-section of contemporary art, art history, religious tradition, and spirituality. We are funded by Howard and Roberta Amundsen. My name is Kara Megan Lewis, and I am joined by my colleagues Linnaeus Francie Noyce, Vicki Fung Smith, and Michael Wright. Our current exhibition is in its final weeks. To Bow and to Bend features 31 artists whose works explore the spiritual, ecological, cultural, and art historical significance of trees. And this Sacred Trees series has been accompanying this exhibition for the last month. I am in front of a piece by Jill Delendro, who is a Portuguese artist who found a fallen oak in Debs Park and has made an acoustical instrument out of it. There are contact mics that are hooked to whips that read the actual surface, the bark, and the history of this tree, which is an oak, which is native to California. So it is quite an honor to be able to introduce Julia Louise Bogany, who is a Tongva elder. And I learned recently that elder doesn't just connote that you're older. Right. It means that you are wise in heart and that you have dedicated your life to the preservation of the Tongva culture. And your granddaughter has followed in your steps, Erica. And so even though she is not as old as you, she is also a Tongva elder. You are still the cultural officer of the Gabrielino Tongva of San Gabriel, or cultural consultant. You have your own consulting business, Julia. Yes. And you're on countless committees, and you give workshops from such varied topics such as water rights to pine needle basket weaving. And Julia is also passionate about the Tongva language and its preservation. Julia and her granddaughter Erica have started a website to increase the visibility of the Tongva culture, and it is tobevisible.org. And I hope that our audience will visit that website after the lecture to learn more about the Tongva culture. And those who are visiting or who are attending from outside of California, Tongva is the indigenous people of the Los Angeles Basin region who have been here since the turn of the Ice Age. So at that, I'm pleased to present Julia Bogany.
Good afternoon, I'm Julia Bogany. I'm Gabrielino Tongva of San Gabriel. I just had a birthday Thursday. I just turned 72. My grandma is who I did all my work for, and now I do it for my great granddaughter Marissa. Because my grandma died at 42, and my mother at 50. So I'm 72. I need to do it to the younger generation. And Marissa is studying art right now, so that's really exciting. Even though she wants to be a doctor. I just kind of thought she should do that for the summer. And I have 4 children, 12 grandchildren, and 19 great-grands. So I stay pretty busy, along with I'm the elder in residence at Claremont Colleges, and I work at several colleges with students on dissertations and just as an advisor. So I'm pleased to be here today.
Do you want me to go to the next slide, Julia? Do you want to start here?
I'd like to start here. This is at the now called California Gardens, which was Santa Ana Botanical Gardens before. This oak is where I work every November doing acorn necklaces with children. And so I was doing another interview, and they said, where do you want to take a picture? I said, in front of this oak. I've never seen it. It's behind me all the time, right? But I really enjoyed the portrait that they took of it and what that oak means. So I don't know if you know the history of Santa Ana Botanical Gardens. Was started by Susan Bixby, which was, and my great grandma was her nanny. And when she dedicated this garden to her father when he died, she did all the native plants there because of my great grandmother who she learned from. So that's an interesting history from the botanical gardens. So this first oak here is the one in Pachanga. It's more than 3,000 years old. I just love that it's just like, it's kind of like hugging you, right? It's all round and all it's just so strong. And that's why, I think that's why a lot of us really identify with the oak, because it comes from that little tiny acorn, comes this big oak that just surrounds us and lives forever, has lived way before we were here, and will continue after we're gone. So here we have our men getting ready. They're getting ready to harvest the acorns. And so you notice they're not climbing the tree and throwing the branches around, but they're just tapping the branches so that the acorns fall. And it's important. So because it's a family affair, I teach children that this is the way we get ready to prepare the meal of acorns. So now the women are gathering, and the children are probably running around there somewhere. But they're gathering the acorns into their baskets. And the big baskets are the burden baskets that we'll see in the next slide. But they're picking them all up. They're not like choosing, but they just picking them up from the ground, because that's the easier way to do it than to just try to stand under that tree. So now they have them, they strap them on their head, because this is a burden basket. And I always say it's a burden basket because probably they were really heavy with all those oaks in there. And then they have handbags for things that they were gathering as they were going that are not as heavy. And they're heading toward their village. So now they're here at the granary because they have put all the oaks and the acorns into that granary. And they got to protect so the oak tree only gives acorns every 2 years. And if you go to a grove, if you went to a village, you would see several oaks, but not all of them are giving every two, in the same year. And so there would be marked by if you're in a Tongva village, by the Tongva, they would have a marking for their family. And so anyone else from the Shumash or the Serrano could come and get oaks. If they needed them, they just never touched the ones that the trees were marked for the Tongva families. So it was okay to come and just take whatever you needed, but we made sure to store for 2 years in these graineries, and then they're made out of the branches to keep the acorns, and they're pretty tightly woven so that the squirrels don't come and decide they want to harvest them. So then we have our natural house, which is the key next to her. So it's always close to the house. Yes.
And what is the granary made of, and also the kia?
The key is made out of the key is made out of the house, which is the key, is made out of willow for the structure, and then it has tule reed on the outside, and then there's a hole at the top there, like a little chimney, right? And then when we didn't have tule, we would use cattail. The granary itself is made out of the oak tree. So there's branches that make it so that it stays. It's kind of like if you refrigerate something within itself, it stays. But it's also covered above to kind of keep the odor of oaks getting out, so that the animals wouldn't come and take it for their lunch. So here we're using a mortar and a mano to crack open the acorns. This is and she's separating them, and this is, if you're just a small family, you're just doing it for your family, this is good enough, right? You don't need to have a big grinding stone, but we will show one next. But this is just a little a small one for like a family is eating. But if, let's say, your relatives are coming in or people are training, then you use the large grinding stones, so that several women could be doing it at the same time. So see, so this looks like she's sitting on the ground, but she's not. She's actually sitting on a big mortar, on a huge stone that, yes, it's like it has the hose embedded in there from grinding so much. And she's using a mano, and it's larger because it has to go into the hole to crack open the acorns. Now we know that a lot of people, I hear them say that all the time. Well, we got some acorns and we just ate them like peanuts. And I said, you're poisoning yourself. The little red skin on the acorn, that's why we go through this process. It's poison, right? It's a tanning, and we used it for dyeing our deer skins in baskets to make them redder. So it's a tanning solution, and it's not something you can just take out of a tree like a peanut and eat it. So there's a brush there. It's made out of the wild onion to just kind of help get all the meat out of the bowl that's made out of stone. So now we're leaching it, and it's not about just rinsing the acorns once. You have to do it at least 5 times till the water gets clear. So it's usually pretty red, and then it starts turning yellow because in between that, they're taking off all the red little skin before in a whittling basket, and then now they're leaching it, getting ready to prepare it for dinner. And we use the leaves inside the basket to keep it all safe so that it doesn't go through the basket. So now she's separating it, making sure there's no more tanning in there, making sure it's, we always say, makes you a good cook if you don't throw those acorns out of the basket while you're doing this. So, but she's just making sure that all the tanning is out and it's ready for cooking. So now this stone is called a soapstone. It's steelite. It maintains 400 degrees of heat. So you don't have to keep heating the stone up, right? Going into your food and taking it out back and forth is enough to cook the meal. So she's heating the soapstone, taking it out with a stick carefully, and then she'll put it into the bowl of acorn mush and cook it. But then there's a stick next to it that has a little ladle like a spoon that's made out of willow, because willow maintains the heat very well. We use it to bend our willow. And so she's going to put that into the big bowl that she has there, which is a basket, right? With tar inside of it to make it so it doesn't leak. So.
And so can you, the role of the soapstone was actually the cooking mechanism, correct? That's
yes.
What heated okay.
Right. So because it maintains the heat, right? You don't want to put that basket over the fire.
Right.
So soapstone was a big trade for us. The soapstone came from Catalina, and it was our biggest trade. So there's stories called Tongva gold, because that was the biggest trade we had across California and beyond. So now she's stirring it, and you see the soapstone in there. She's not making sure it doesn't burn the basket. So I always say, if you find a burned basket at the museum, you know that there was they forgot to move the stone, and so so they burned the basket. But we have some more steps before we finish. So she's just moving the stone, making sure it's getting thicker, right? So that it becomes just like a cream of wheat, I say, So she's going to add to it now some elderberries, right? We like to have berries in our cream of wheat, oatmeal, whatever we may have in the morning. She's making this one so the acorn is our flour. So we can make our bread, our biscuits, our anything you use flour for. We use acorn cookies. Today we make cookies with them and all kinds of nuts, but we always want that sweet part, right? So we would use berries to kind of help, because this acorn itself is not very sweet.
So this is the same elderberry that we see in the pharmacy that's been bottled and
Yeah,
packaged, correct? Yeah.
right. And
And
you
it's
can eat
native
them.
to,
I used to carry them on my display tables, and you know, they just dry up, and they kind of would disappear because the kids like to eat them like they are, right? Like they're dried up, like,
yeah.
and it's these elderberries is the first time we made, like, what is it called that kids like to use? Um, they're on a strip like Jello, but it's a strip like
Oh,
Fruit
yeah, I can't.
leather or
fruit roll-ups, like a fruit
Yes, fruit
roll-up. Yeah,
roll-ups.
yeah.
Because you dry them out and you spread them out, and so we made the first fruit roll-ups out of elderberries.
Oh my goodness, wow. I bet they were delicious and probably a lot healthier
Yes.
than the fruit roll-ups we have in the store.
Yeah, because we had more sugar, right? We're just using the elderberries as they are.
Right.
Okay. And now it's time for dinner or breakfast. They've been out there eating together as a family, and it's kind of like, I like these pictures to kind of show how the family works together and they eat together and spend that time together, right? So I have an elderberry tree here because that's the tree I work with a lot besides the willow, and I didn't have a picture of a willow tree, but I used the willow a lot. So there's the elderberry where it makes jams and jelly out of the berries, and medicine for also and it dyes. You can actually make a dye out of it, right, for our baskets. But we also make cough syrup, and that's the cough syrup you see in the market. Now, we make cough syrup every year, and the kids love it because they can either eat it on their pancakes or take the cough syrup for their cold, for their coughs. And it doesn't have the alcohol in it, so it'll last a whole year, right? Because we just make them like small bottles. But they like doing that. And then the flowers, I just love the elderberry flowers. You're just gonna use the flowers to make this great drink. You can put some chia in it, some lemonade, and the elderberry just makes a really great tasting tea. And then we have the bark of the tree, where the thicker part is. You can see where it's pointing to the thicker part. That's how we made our skirts that we wore, out of the inner bark of the elderberry. We also make our instruments out of the elderberry. We have a clapper stick we make because California Indians didn't have drums, so we make clapper sticks. And we make also these little, like, instead of medicine bags, like a little container to put our chia in, or whatever we're traveling with, or medicine. You can call it a medicine bag. And game pieces. So that's what's on this little row. Is we made our flutes, our clapper sticks, and then all kinds of game pieces for toys and games. So this is just showing how we use every part of the tree. And of course the animals come around also, right? They like elderberries. The bees like berries. And have you noticed that that's how they get the purple honey? It's from the elderberry. Mm-hmm. When bees are making honey. And also there's a lot of uses for every part of it.
Julia, you're talking about, the connectedness and kind of cohabitation between humans, the tree, and the animals. And I've read a little bit, about the kinship relationship between the indigenous people and the land, specifically in California. Can you talk a little bit about the practices of tending the land? I heard that Tongva means people of the earth. And
right.
You've talked about how, the Tongva don't believe that they owned the land, that they were gatekeepers of it. And
right.
So there was this, the practice of tending. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes. So Tongva does mean people of the earth. And it also, we didn't have a name in our language, and none of the tribes actually do, for the word nature. Because we are connected, it is like a connection to us. It's like, we cannot survive without the plants, without the animals, We don't just go in our time of taking deers for food. We did not just go take it and shoot it or with a bow and arrow or something. We went up to it and could say, thank you for giving your life for my family to be here. And then also the food that we plant, we don't just take the plants, right? We always give it tobacco. And if you don't have tobacco with you, then, and it's kind of like the tobacco works kind of like what we do today as using, what do you call it when you put all the special food for the plant, right? Because you're not just giving it a pinch. Yeah. So
Yeah.
because it's giving something, because the tobacco that we're giving is pure, right?
Yeah.
And you're just giving it like a pinch. But if you don't have tobacco with you, then you have to pull your hair from your root and give it just a couple strands of hair, but it hurts to pull, right? Because I was teaching the women, and they were giving me the hair from the brushes, and I said, no, that's not what we do. You have to pull it from your root, so you're actually sacrificing something for the sacrifice of the plant giving you something, right?
Wow.
And so the reason we didn't have the word for nature, it was something that we just say the nature, is because we are connected to everything. Mm-hmm. And so when I say life matters, I'm talking about all life. I'm talking about the water, the plants, the animals, the humans, we all matter. And in our circle, when we look at how we're made, humans are made last, right? Because we're not dominating, we're learning from the plants and from the animals and from everything. And we're just like the keepers. And so I always say the land was not stolen. It was the responsibility of taking care of the land like we should was taken. But now a lot of people are listening more to our stories and how we care for the land so that we can continue in this world without all the heat we're having now, right? So, and things that we need to take care of each other and take care of the plants and our animals and, and human beings.
Yeah, and I guess my question as now someone who's fairly new, only 4 years in Los Angeles, and in my backyard are these groves of live oaks. And so what is our role as those who are new to California in this act of preservation and of kind of resurfacing this what I think they call traditional ecological knowledge? What role can we play? What role can the attendees of this presentation play in that?
So I say a lot of times, like sometimes, if you're doing a class for a school or at a nature center, that it's, I have found that people are really cool about, like if I'm in near the beach, people will bring me abalones, right? Or they'll bring me acorns or nuts, that people are great about trading. And saying, we really thank you for coming today. And and they bring you whatever they have in the garden. It's about sharing. It's not about coming to an event, but it's about what do we have that we have an abundance of that we can share. And that's how nobody ever winds up with no food, right? You can even attach a recipe to it if you know what you're preparing, or if it's somebody that they know what to use, how to use it, then you're still, it's about giving. Because I don't think we can ever overgive.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we need to hear more of that. I do want to bring it back to the oak tree. You had mentioned, just before we opened it up to questions, you had mentioned to Vicki and I the story about grandmother oak. And I'm curious about, specifically because of our space, Bridge Projects is at the intersection of art, but also spirituality and religious tradition. And is there a cosmology, or is there a sacred story connected to the oak
In
trees?
Thousand Oaks, they have, in their nature center, they have this cute little book. All nature centers that usually have like a lot of oaks have the story of the grandmother oak that explains to children her importance of who she is, right? And so I think it's really neat to have. It's just a little simple, like $3 book, but it's really great. A great story of explaining, like seeing the grandmother oak as somebody, right? So like I always said, we didn't have names till we went through puberty ceremony, because we had those terms of endearment as saying sister, big sister, younger sister, and we had a saying for the plants. We called the oak tree a grandmother oak, right? And we might name, so if we have a child, we're not going to name her oak tree, we're going to name her Acorn, because she's to become big and strong. And so it's not about her staying this little tiny acorn. It's that you want her to become a strong woman. So you name her Acorn.
Right.
You're not gonna start off when you're a grandma, then you become an oak.
Grandmother oak.
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, it speaks to this kinship relationship. Right. I have one final question just before we open it up to questions from the audience. Oh, actually, we have a good one that's related to our topic right now. Kyle asks, are trees always seen as female?
No, you can't. You can't. You have to have both. So like if I buy an avocado tree, right? We used planting avocado trees at the springs. They have to mate, right?
Yeah.
And so do they both give fruit? You know, I never tested, but you have to have both in order to have the fruit from the tree.
So there could be a grandfather oak as well.
Yeah, there could be a grandfather.
Yeah.
There's a grandfather in there somewhere.
Yeah, but we all start as acorns, and that's
yeah
important to remember.
Yes.
I had a question about, this is actually related to an artwork in our exhibition. There's an artist who made a work from trees that had burned in a recent fire 2 years ago. It's ponderosa pine and cedars, and he's made a wreath, which is a memorial to the fire that devastated so much property. But in much of the history of California, there was cultural burning. There was controlled burning that was was about tending the land. And so I would love to hear from your perspective the role of cultural burning now.
We're talking to the forestry now to restart that education of how we do cultural burning. And also, you know, when we read the book of trees talking to each other, they talk about how the older trees protect the babies as these fires are coming, you know, that the roots of the trees speak, and how they protect the young trees. But culture burning is something that's not here again, but we are talking about it with the forestry.
Yeah, and what are some of the pushback, or what are some of the obstacles of that practice becoming more present or practice?
It's because it was, you know, when you have a fire, you have new growth comes. But when we have fires in our parks today, usually there's a lot of junk around there, right? In a contained fire, you don't have like people's lunch bags and bottles and everything else. It's kind of cleaner environment, right? Safety, because you don't want to have all those fumes going into what's happening. So it's about keeping the area healthy in order to do a healthy fire that will just be for regrowth and not for just for killing the plants.
Right. Right. So it's going to take a lot of changing of
Yes.
habits. Yeah, of our own human.
Well, that's just like our dirt, right? I always say, when I was a kid, that was the last time you smelled dirt and you wanted to eat it. Today, you don't even smell it, right? And
Yes.
right, you would water the yard and you could smell the dirt, and it just smelled so good. You just had to taste it. And we made mud pies. I don't think none of my children are down into my great grands have ever smelled what a dirt pie tastes like, right?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's that smell after, because the rain brings it out. The rain
Yes.
brings the geosmin out into
Right.
the air, and
So
yeah,
it
we're
takes 4
connected.
years. 4 years for you to recover that.
Wow, 4 years to clean the soil, to clean the dirt.
Yes, to clean the
That's
soil. So
awesome.
when we start planting, you know, when we're planting our plants now, it takes 4 years before you get the best food out of it, because the earth has to be reclaimed. And that's a learning process, right?
Yeah. I'm going to start to ask some of the questions from our audience.
Okay.
From Hope, she asks, what are the Tongva words for oak and acorn?
I don't have, I've been taking my, I do have a Tongva dictionary, but we're in conference right now, and since I haven't left my room, I don't have it here. But if she wants to send me in my website, I can send it to her.
Okay, great.
She can send me a note in my website. Yeah.
Perfect. Let's see. Okay, I'm gonna go back. I have to go back a little bit in the chat.
Okay.
What plants grow near oaks? Typically, this is from Mahida. And are there stories about the plants that grow near oaks? Maybe the plants that maybe share the what is it, mycorrhizal network, the fungi. Are there trees or plants that benefit oak trees?
I haven't heard, but you know, I used to say I didn't do planting because I kill plastic, but now it seems like the plants keep calling me, so I'm studying the plants. I do things that I make out of plants, but not things that I plant.
And one of the things that you make out of plants are the pine needle baskets, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I like making pine needle baskets. That's a modern thing, because pine needles isn't one of our authentic baskets, right? But it's a new thing, and so we make a lot of pine needle jewelry and baskets, because it's if you're teaching at a class, it's easy for kids to gather them before they go to class, and to make hair brushes and baskets. It doesn't take long, and it's so thrilling to children to see what it's like. I do pine needle classes, right? But it doesn't take a lot of work.
Because yes, the bundles are the pine needles are bundled together.
Yeah. So it's always better to get like the longer needles, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And then speaking of baskets and containers, Kyle asks, how do you overcome the potential problem of moisture in the acorn graineries? Specifically, if you're, they're holding them for 2 years, how does moisture stay out of those containers?
Well, I think they're actually holding them for 1 year, and no, there's no moisture, because there's, it's the granary is separate from the right close to the house, but there's no moisture getting in there because it's totally covered with not only the bark of the wood. There's another plant that twirls around it. It's a smell. I can't think of the name of it. We make baskets out of it with the leaves on it, and it's to keep the animals from trying to get in there. So it wouldn't be like a fire hydrant for a dog, right?
Right.
Other than that, you're not going to get moisture, right? So they're
So it
pretty,
has a smell that repels
right.
dogs.
It's a repellent
Wow.
of another plant that, yeah, that's twined around it. Yeah.
Wow. So Vicky was able to look up on your site. Kwar is the word for acorn, and I don't know if I want to try to pronounce this, but we ashar for oak tree, perhaps? I don't know.
Spell it to me.
Okay, I'll spell it to you. Yes, it's better. W with a apostrophe Aashar.
Resha.
Ashar.
So I just finished they're not in there yet. There's the coloring book of animals with their names in Tongva, but I just finished a plant and insect that's a book, coloring book that's going to be printed, and the horses of water, you know.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a series I'm doing for kids to learn the language.
That's so great. We'll be able to look out for that on your website.
Yes.
Good. So another question from Mahida. She asks, is it true that acorn meal satisfies hunger for many, many hours?
No, that's chia.
Yeah.
So it's a good meal. It's you know, it's kind of like it's our bread, right? So,
Yeah.
but if let's say the hunters were out there hunting, and I always say they couldn't stop at 7-Eleven, or they didn't pack peanut butter sandwiches with them. They just put a little bit of chia on the tip of their tongue, and it would take them for hours till they finish hunting. You know.
Yeah, and now we sprinkle it, and sprinkle it on our cereal. Again, it's this, these things that are
Sprinkles
turning
good.
up in our.
But a lot of people spoon it, and it becomes a problem.
Yeah. So from Hope, she asks, or says, my garden has 5 coastal oaks, and an arborist has told her that the oak trees are companions to one another, and that if one is cut, the others will suffer.
Yes.
Is that true?
I read that, yeah. It's because they have feelings for each other, right? If you read, there's a lot of stuff out there on that relationship of trees, right?
Yes.
And they have feelings like we do. So I always told, when I taught preschool, I always told kids, don't kick the tree, you're hurting his feelings. And I said, and they'd look at me and I said, but it's a tree. Yeah, but he still has feelings.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. I want to make sure I'm getting everybody here. Let's see. There's acorn starch at Korean stores. Did you know that they sell acorn
yes.
starch?
Yes. Well, they also sell the acorn meal. So yeah, at Korean stores, and you can. My cousin always makes cookies for the event we have at the Acorn Festival, or she'll make like bread and to share, but she buys hers there. Right? We don't do.
So you don't have to. Yes, you don't have to grind it one by one.
Yeah, and I have a friend that makes coffee out of acorns, and it is really. It tastes like a cappuccino. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really good. Because when she first told me, I said, really? But it does taste like cappuccino.
Interesting. I would not have thought that.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. So, and then she followed up with a coffee out of what? And it's the acorn that, acorn that tastes like cappuccino. Yeah. So my colleagues have a couple of questions. And so I'm thinking that, why don't you make yourself unmuted, team? And Vicky, do you want to ask your question? And then Michael?
Oh, sure. It's amazing all the knowledge you have, Julia, like talking about, oh yes, the shell of the skin of acorns, it's poisonous. It takes 4 years for the soil to clean itself and naturally filter. Where did you get all this, your information or your wisdom? Is it from your family, your
We
grandmother?
passed it down from family, you know.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
have some good plant experts out there. And then now that I'm studying more, I'm reading more also, you know.
Mhm.
Julia, I was really impressed by how elegant the tools and the built environment of the Tongva people are, and how close they are to uh, the biological world. And now we live in a world dominated by plastic and metals, and everything's disposable. Where did we go wrong?
I don't think we asked people when they came here what they were doing, right? Because I do a whole class on abalones, and I show them how, if you know, we cover the hose to make a bow, right, out of tar. We cover just the hose to make our bow, and then if it breaks, then you have a spoon because it has that deep part in it, like a soup spoon. And then you know, you shave it up a little, but then you use the rest of it to make jewelry, you know, that's really popular. So we really didn't give any, just throw things away. We just kind of learn how to use it. So
I feel like we need to recover that and sit at your feet, learn that again.
yes.
I had a question about the soapstone.
Uh-huh.
So you say that it came from Catalina,
Yes.
and so I assume there was a regular sort of canoe
There's
uh,
mines there.
mines. Oh, and so people would go over. I assume that they would go over on canoe because you'd have to,
Right.
bring them all back. And so, how many people would go over? Like, how much of a practice was this?
So Catalina actually was one of our islands. So there's a story of in Almani about the little boy who breaks because when we started making pots, and I have some in my nature center, they're made out of soapstone. They're big pots for boiling water, right? You don't have to have no fire in them. You just heat it up and it'll keep your food hot. But it also, he takes a 4 days journey from what is that called, from right there in Highland Park all the way to Catalina to bring a bow back, because he was so busy with his little rabbit stick that he broke the bow and he had to go get another one. Because the thing is that when you took something or destroyed something, you had to make it better for whoever, because it's never your thing that you break, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had to make it better, and that's how the tribe stayed balanced, right? So like if I came and took your basket because I really liked it, and then I took it home and maybe my kids broke it, then somebody would say, well, I heard you took her basket. So you got to make her one better. You can't just say, well, it's broken now, right? You have to make something better for that person.
Another question from they keep coming in. Someone wanted to ask you. They say greetings to Elder Julia Bogany. I wanted to ask you, what do you mean when you said that Tongva people don't have a word for nature because of the interconnectedness? Does this mean that you consider human beings as nature together with animal, plant, and rock? That we are not
We're
separate,
all connected.
that we're all
We're
connected?
relatives.
Mm-hmm.
We say no word for nature because we're related, right?
Mm-hmm.
We cannot
no
live
distance.
without those things, so we have to be related. And that's how you show respect to, we have no respect for water, plants, animals, because we don't see that it takes that to help us live as human beings. So if you're connected, you don't make it a word of nature, because then you separate us.
Yeah, it's about this almost a cosmology of kinship. But I don't think any of us are going to look at the oak the same way or walk down the pharmacy aisle and see elderberry in the same way. Now we have been gifted with such a knowledge that comes from your ancestors. And so we will do our best to also share that story, and preserve the story of the Tongva people in our area.
Thank you.
And we are going to conclude our program here, and then we're going to allow anybody to stick around for our after party. And between that time, Julia, I'm actually going to share a video that we made about our exhibition, because I have a feeling that a lot of attendees are joining us at Bridge Projects for the first time. So I'm going to take an opportunity to share a video about our show, and then if you'll stay on for our little casual after party so we can. Okay, thank you so much everyone for being here. Those of you who want to see the video, please stay on. And those of you who want to chat in person with Julia Bogany, please stick around. Thank you.